with autistic people, whether diagnosed or not, you're still autistic. And I didn't get diagnosed till I was 17, but that doesn't change the fact that I was still autistic. Um, so in the beginning, I was born at a very young age, but sadly, I don't remember anything about it. So I'm going to have to fast forward a bit. My earliest memories are when I was 4. I have a terrible short term memory, but an amazing long term memory. Um, 4 is when I started rocking as my main stem. Um, I actually didn't know this. But yeah, rocking, to this day, it's still my main stem. I don't actually remember when I started, but my older sister does, and she told me. However, there are things like that I do remember. They're actually fairly good number. I remember being in junior kindergarten and spending so much time just lining up these like blocks. You could connect them, but they weren't Lego. They were something else. Um, but yeah, I loved it so much. It was like one of my favorite things to do there, just lining them up from one side of the room to the other. And but yeah, is beside it was my favorite thing besides like playing with the rice that was in this like large plastic container. It was like dry rice, and I loved putting my hands in that rice. The texture was so amazing. It was sort of like a sandbox, but rice instead. Um,
Wait, that's literally my first ever memory is when I was 2 in a rice table. What?
um, in senior kindergarten, there was this tiger hood that I would always wear. It was kind of like, for anyone who's seen Bob's Burgers, it's like a mix of Louise's bunny hat and a balaclava, except that it was orange and had tiger ears. I would wear that all the time. I loved it so much. I still remember what it felt like. It was knitted, it was made of yarn. My mom said that she's actually shocked that she didn't see that I was autistic much earlier. I flew just under the radar, and it's probably because I was assigned female at birth. Um, my mom worked with autistic people. She worked at a group home with adults who couldn't take care of themselves, and like their parents either didn't want to take care of them or were too old to take care of them. And some of the people who lived there were autistic. So yeah, is honestly when I got my diagnosis, she was like, "Oh my gosh, how did I not see this before?" um, I remember when I was a kid being really into Ariel from The Little Mermaid and Jessica Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I draw them everywhere. I've always loved drawing, and I would draw on every surface that was made like of paper substance, like cardboard boxes, construction paper, the insides of cereal boxes, just anything. I remember that there was this one box that my dad said, okay, you cannot draw on this. And eventually my self-control got the better of me and I drew on it. He wasn't happy. It wasn't until I was 9 that I found a special interest outside of drawing that not only lasted years, but also took up so much of my brain space. And that was Sailor Moon. I would only draw Sailor Moon characters until I was about like 12. I watched every episode and would play Sailor Moon with my friends, like make believe, at school. After Sailor Jupiter was introduced, she was the only one I'd play as. She was my absolute favorite character. Um, I actually met her original English voice actor just before leaving for China. It was incredible. I had, and still have, they're in storage, a bunch of Sailor Moon toys and figurines. And for my 10th birthday, my dad bought me the Sailor Moon soundtrack until the CD didn't work anymore. Um, um, but yeah, my mom would joke that Sailor Moon was one of her children. Like, it was just so much of my life. It was just like she became part of the family. But yeah, from Sailor Moon, I jump from hyperfixation to hyperfixation, but still be obsessed with Sailor Moon. You know, Final Fantasy VII, Pokemon, Digimon, Dot Hack Sign, Inuyasha, etc., etc., etc. This to say I was a huge gamer and anime fan. In my later teens, I adopted the label of otaku. Now I would call myself an old taku. I got into cosplaying and conventions, which always made sure that I never had any money. I did start losing my interest in anime in my early 20s, but that was probably because of an abusive friend I had, making it no longer fun for me.
Fun fact, we actually met because I was a photographer at a cosplay picnic and started hitting on them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My partner is hitting on me the entire time at the picnic, and it just went right over my head because they were their way of flirting was complimenting my outfit, my costume, and so
telling them they looked pretty.
and I just thought, oh wow, they must really like my outfit. It wasn't until another friend said, like, they're flirting with you. It's like, oh, and then I'm just like, hey, want to date me?
Yes.
But yeah, aside from my hyperfixating, there were other autistic traits that I was showing. Having trouble getting jokes and getting easily offended when people were joking because I took what they were saying at face value. I know my siblings would sometimes purposely joke that would say jokes that would set me off. I think the easiest way to do this was to mispronounce my name. My name is spelled Theresa. So my siblings would call me the Risa. Oh, it always set me off. They don't do that kind of stuff anymore. We've all grown up and such. Please don't think poorly of my siblings just because of how they acted as kids. They're amazing people, trust me.
Siblings will sibling.
Yes, siblings will sibling. I think one of the reasons why no one ever thought I was autistic as a kid was because I had friends. Before my teens, I met most of my friends by simply going up to people and saying hi. One of my oldest and dearest friends that I have to this day, we met on the bus in grade school. There was an empty seat right next to them. I sat next to them and said hi. And we became friends. It's been over almost 30 years since we met. After I entered my teens, though, all of my friends were people my other friends introduced me to. Even to this day, most, if not all of my IRL friends are people I'd met through other people who I'd met through other people, and so on and so on and so on. Even my partner is someone I met through someone else. Autistic people are seen as loners who can't interact socially. So because I had friends, everyone just threw the idea that I might be autistic out the window. It was in grade 7, I think, when I was like 12 to 13, that things started going downhill. I started having meltdowns at school, and so my parents started taking me to professionals. I think I went through 2 child therapists or psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever before I had one for any length of time. I ended up diagnosed as bipolar with OCD and generalized anxiety disorder. I was put on medication, and while that medication would work for a little, while my body would adjust, my body would adjust to it and it wouldn't work anymore. So my psychiatrist would up the dose. By 17, I was on the legal limit of several different medications. I was taking, I think, around 15 to 20 pills a day. I remember I was on, is it Seroquel? I was taking 9 pills of Seroquel a day, 3 with each meal. I was so drugged up that my hands would constantly shake, and I couldn't wake up in the morning. And when I was awake, I was a zombie. My dad ended up pulling me out of school because of this. Eventually, my mom put her foot down and said, "This is enough." This led to me being put into a psych ward for minors for 2 weeks. This is where I was diagnosed with Asperger's. This was back in 2003, so the DSM-5 hadn't come out yet. Okay, so funny story. The only reason that I remember that this was in August of 2003 was because while I was in that ward, the huge Northeast blackout of 2003 happened. For those who don't know what this was, there was it was this blackout that affected parts of Ontario, where I'm from, as well as parts of the states of Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, New Jersey, and New York. And it all started because a tree branch touched a power line in Ohio. But yeah, I remember sitting in the hallway with the 2 other girls who were there with me, along with a couple of the nurses. And we listened to news reports of people in New York City getting out of their cars and helping direct traffic. The emergency power was on, so we still had electricity. Anyways, tangent aside, when I was being released from that ward, my dad and I were sat down and a nurse explained to me that I had Asperger's. My reaction was basically, "I have what?" I'd heard of autism, but I'd never heard of Asperger's. She explained it a little, but I don't remember anything she said. When we got home, my dad and I looked it up online. And we didn't find a whole lot. The best we found was like a list of traits that basically just explained that Asperger's was the reason I rocked and a few other things. But half of the list didn't apply to me. So I went on with life just assuming that most of my issues were being caused by my being bipolar. After this, I tried high school again. It didn't go well. I finally passed grade 9, but dropped out during grade 10 when I was 18. Since I was 18, I was eligible for adult ed, which I did for a few years before giving that up too. I got on disability, moved out of my hometown, and my life was pretty much just me on autopilot until I met my partner and started college.